Thank you. My name is Steve Katz, and I will be your moderator for this afternoon's healthcare panel discussion. We are going to have a very interesting and diverse conversation, as you will come to recognize. I am, by way of introduction, a management consultant in the healthcare space. I've spent 42 years doing that. My firm, Stephen Katz and Associates, works with early stage healthcare life science companies right up through multi-billion-dollar companies. The services we provide are strategic and advisory associated with commercialization, which includes turnarounds. I've run 15 turnarounds over the years. I've helped launch numerous products. I've helped rectify a number of publicly and privately held companies over time. We do a fair amount of technology licensing and tech transfer work. I've been involved in 5 proxy fights and have sat on 28 boards over time. I have a very experienced panel of individuals. Michael Banyas of NIH, Jay Fischer, a very experienced operator of an early stage technology company with a vast amount of corporate experience. I have Norm Friedland, who is a familiar face to us, an attorney who's spoken with me and to our group many times, and Sean Coveleski of Stand Up to Cancer, also someone that we have been blessed with his presence over time in our discussions. I'm going to be asking Michael to speak first. And by way of background, Michael is a senior officer of the U.S. Public Health Service. He is also a health specialist at NIH, specifically in the group called the Institute of Minority Health Disparities. And as I said, part of NIH. NIH provides about $1.4 billion a year in SBIR grants to various companies. And Michael's role and responsibility is to administer the portion that pertains to the Institute of Minority Health Disparities, which also includes a big franchise in women's health. And he administers $25 million, which is spread out over approximately 100 companies. So welcome, Michael. Thank you. Look forward to hear what you have to say. My first question to you, Michael, is can you provide an overview of the requirements for applicants and the different funding mechanisms of the NIH SBIR award program?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I really appreciate the opportunity. So just as an overview for what it means.
One second, Marty, I'm not getting any volume back on this end. Is there an adjustment I've got to make or something on your end?
Hello? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, there we go. Much better.
All right. Thank you again for the opportunity, Stephen. Thank you very much for the question. So just an overview of what types of companies we fund and what is the eligibility criteria. So by statute, it needs to be a small business under 500 employees. It needs to be less than 50% owned by a VC or a collection of VCs, and all the work must be done domestically. And depending on what institute you apply to for NIH, now my institute is disease agnostic, so we do everything from chronic diseases to cancer to service delivery to clinical trials. The more disease-specific institutes, like if you have an oncology or a chronic disease platform, like you're going to apply to those institutes and they have their own pot of money. Like I've got about 20 million, cancer has about 200 million. But it really is one of the things that we help do as far as program officers is we help you play the game of where to apply and where to actually get your business. We have a lot of business development conversations to help you prepare to apply and meet those eligibility criteria.
Okay, thank you. Now, what is the due diligence process that you go through to assess and to rate a company or to determine that the company beyond the parameters that you have is noteworthy and appropriate for SBIR funding from NIH?
So we kick the tires on these companies a little bit differently than maybe some of the other private investment groups that might look for profitability or, growth potential. We kick the tires on these companies based on funding the best science. So we look at 5 core areas, which is assessed by a panel of 3 independent reviewers, which score the application. And those areas are staffing. Like a lot of applications that I see, they don't accurately convey or have the staffing to actually carry out the project. For example, if you're doing a dietary concept or something focused on diabetes and you don't have that expertise reflected in your staffing profile or who's going to carry out the project, really those applications end up getting a loss in confidence quicker because we're like, well, they don't have the right people to carry out the application. Second criteria we look at is significance. What's the problem? Like, how big is it and how is this innovation? Innovation is this third area that we grade on. What are you doing differently to help move the needle, pursue this different market, or, helping bring the science forward? So we've got staffing, we've got significance of problem, innovation, and then most importantly, the other thing we look at is approach and environment. So if we see that you're going to be carrying out a concept that we're going to fund in an urban environment, but it's meant for a rural environment, that experiment, that small research question for say a phase 1, which is a $314,000 award, that's not really going to, have credence or confidence that you're actually going to be able to test the usability and inform the technical work for the business to go forward. So we grade on staffing, significance of problem, innovation, approach and environment for which you're proposing your projects. And from there, we assess what is going to be the best science to fund and the best use of the taxpayers' money. So
I've got a quick question here, Michael. So does the fact that the company may or may not have significant intellectual property or novel patents, novel approaches, does that have a bearing, or do the screening panel look to the meritoriousness of the product or its confidence level to achieve success? Do these types of issues go into the equation?
we don't really, if you don't have the IP already, that's fine. Like we're mostly funding very, very early stage company, seed, very early pre-series A, if they're ever going to get to that, because we're taking on the risk to help bring that company forward and develop that technology so that it can move to, say, a phase 2, which is a $2 million award for a 2-year project period in which, now you're going to be testing the IP. Maybe now you're going to be getting a patent, or you're going to be conducting a clinical trial.
Got it. One other question. So if company A applies for the initial phase grant and it's turned down, does the company get a second shot at the apple next year, or
Yeah,
because there may be
absolutely.
new developments?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that we try to help with program officers. So there's a general application period every couple of months, September, January and April. And then you also have specific funding opportunities. Like I just had one called Innovations for Healthy Living, which focuses on companies helping open up healthcare access to different markets like rural or bilingual markets, or create products to help support the research or service delivery infrastructure. And that is June and December. And we got almost 400 applications for that. So there's numerous times that companies can apply and resubmit to help, to get assessment. And the thing is that if a company applies, they're going to get feedback regardless. And a lot of times they don't get it on the first bite, but that initial feedback they get from our scientific review panel, a lot of the feedback that we get from those companies after we, as program directors, we, go over the score sheets with them, is they realized, oh, I didn't realize I had a hole here, 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 and here. And now they're not only going to become put forth a stronger application the next time. But now, a lot of the questions we have or a lot of discussions we have is on business development, because they're not going to get the money now. They might get it 9 months. They might get it 12 months from now. Is now they're in developing their business. They're seeing where else there is weaknesses within their concept or in their business, which makes them stronger towards seeking other avenues of capital.
Excellent. So just one quick comment. I'm going to want Sean to comment later, or you to comment when Sean speaks, because a lot of what Sean is doing in Stand Up for Cancer takes a run at very efficacious, viable, and valuable early stage technologies that have implications. So I think we'll have a bit of a synergistic conversation when Sean gets a chance to speak. But I think that's good. So my next question is, how do family offices or other investors find or get to the opportunities that you guys may fund? Because they may have technology value add to bring, additional capital to bring. I'm going to assume that this would be broadly within the wishes of NIH, because it's the furtherance and the assurance of success of a potential opportunity. So how does somebody get to you or to this project or program to invest, co-invest, be involved, going down the line, whether that's a family office or a professional investor or a high net worth guy? How does somebody get a shot at that?
Well, so each institute, like we all as program directors, we will walk the family offices through, we do this often on what companies we funded and who we think really, just in our opinion, has a really good management team or like is really progressing well. And we'll, this is all public information and we can point you in that direction. And one of the great things about, investing in these SBIR companies is, one, they're NIH funded companies. The success rate of getting a grant is really tough. Even though there's 1.4 billion that goes out into the market, there's a lot, it's extremely competitive. So in working with, say, family offices, we'll say, these are our roster of companies. This is who's doing a really, really great product. And then we can put you in touch with the people and we can find out if they're taking outside investment, if they want to have further conversations. And it's a great way of really taking advantage of an entrepreneurial market that's, as the federal government, we're taking on the risk so this innovation can move forward, but we can only take people so far, which is why we have all these relationships with like family offices and venture for capital and other private investors, because, we can only do so much that they're going to need other support to move forward. So it really is a ripe investment opportunity to look for companies that are hungry, that have their acts together, but also we have vetted them. We have done the due diligence on their science.
So there's a vested interest on your behalf to see the company, once it gets a grant, or even if it doesn't get a grant, but otherwise meritorious, to have further activity, to have further involvement, and to have further participation, is the sense that I'm getting.
Yes, we I've got probably my most favorite company, or my most noteworthy company that we have funded is Teal Health, which just came out with the new way, with a different way to do cervical cancer screening. And Kara is an amazing CEO, but when she got her grant, because I had helped work with her on preparing the application, getting that feedback, I was just absolutely tickled pink. I was so excited that she got the grant, but not only that, but she's really moving forward with her company. We work really closely with all these companies, so we're rooting for you. And we want to see you be successful, which means having these successful private-public partnerships, because we can only take companies so far. But this is also a way for us to take the government's investment and help the economy grow and innovation to to move forward in order to, help support the health of our nation's citizens.
I think that's great. I think that's excellent. Very, very well articulated and summarized. And just to pose the very last question to wrap this up before we move along, which doesn't preclude you from asking questions later on, Michael. Are there any other benefits that you can identify that can be associated with the achieving an NIH funding, whether it's the first phase one or phase two or beyond? Are there any other intrinsic benefits to be had?
Yeah, there is. So you get access to entrepreneurs in residence, which will help with the commercialization project, the regulatory project. There's also additional funding that you can apply to within your budget to call TABA funding, which is your business assistant funding, which you can use that money to hire a law firm to do your IP work, hire other outside consultants to do market analysis. We have a lot of company showcases at a lot of the big conferences, such as bio, health, AvaMed, in which we bring companies out there to help showcase, at a pavilion to help showcase their work. So, but the most important thing is that you can say that you're an NIH funded company. That's the big benefit.
Well,
Like,
given that you have
right
so
now, but
few,
it's still a very good name.
yeah, given that you've got so few companies that you funded, at the end of the day, it's clearly a mark of distinction and honor, and it's clearly an accomplishment to have gotten that funding. Michael, thank you. Feel free to jump in any further discussions. I'd like to now introduce Jay Fischer, who, by way of background, is a marketing and corporate business development individual with prior experience at Colgate-Palmolive, PwC, an investor-backed consumer startup, and his own consulting firm. Jay joined a startup entity called Pain Tools 5 years ago as COO. He's also a board member. And these folks, interestingly, manage and work in a certain sense, and Jay will describe that as to how women manage chronic pain, not acute pain, but rather chronic pain. So, Jay, what types of chronic pain conditions does Pain Tools find itself focused on, engaged in? Where are you targeting? What would be the examples of the chronic pain motifs, conditions that Pain Tools is engaged in?
So my wife would tell you an irritating husband
Yes, yeah.
is painful.
Yes, that's right. Here. Absolutely. Thanks, Steve. And thank you, Marty, for the opportunity to participate on the panel. As a setup, what we do is help women practice effective self-care between doctor visits. And we'll talk about why that is a critical need. The kinds of conditions that we focus on are fibromyalgia, lower back pain, some arthritis, migraine, long COVID, and pelvic pain. And many of those have overlapping presentation, so that the people who have participated in our beta trial in very large numbers have anywhere from 2 to 5 of those conditions at the same time. We asked women in a nationally representative survey a couple of years ago what they would do with regard to self-care because they're out of options. And they said if we had something that would guide us in a way that lived with the way we live our life, didn't lecture us, and didn't ask us to do things that were irrelevant, we would support that. 9 out of 10 people said. So we designed a platform that does just that. Please.
Got it. So you described the care gap. So how does Pain Tools fill the care gap between the medical appointments, the doctor's visits, and what programs, what opportunities, what do you present, and what do you do to provide the daily reality of living with these chronic pain conditions? And as you said, often a particular individual is dealing with more than one pain modality. So what do you guys do to make noise here and to be helpful?
Yeah, so the typical individual has seen doctors. Many general practitioners would prefer not to treat, if they're honest, would prefer not to treat chronic pain because after some drugs which have some pretty bad side effects in many cases. Thank God for some work that's coming through the pipeline now that may have some more promise. There's not much that they can do for them. So what does that do? It leaves people feeling very, very frustrated. These are people who really don't feel that medical care, traditional medical care, can do much more for them. So they suffer oftentimes inside of families, but they suffer in private. They can't carry their weight, and this is a real huge invisible problem. There are 60 million women in the country who have recurring pain that doesn't go away for 3 months or more. The conditions that we're focused on, Steve, really number about 20 million women, and by our estimates, it's about an $8 billion market value. So this is a very large issue, and we pray for good interventions, good drugs. We just don't see a knockout punch that's coming through the pipeline very, very quickly. So that's what we're playing. That's what we're playing for.
I see. I think here again, Sean and Norm will have much to comment on, and we'll come back to this when they speak, because Norm does mission funding, and I think mission funding will apply to this. And with respect to Stand Up for Cancer, which Sean will explain later, these might be good collaborative programs and collaborative efforts for co-participation or for partnering opportunities, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I know from our discussions, Jay, that you do have, and you do fund, or you do get involved with, or you participate in certain trials and results. So the question becomes, what outcomes have you achieved, have been accomplished, and how do you scale this, take advantage of it? How do you impact revenues of entities, if applicable, going forward here? Could you comment on that, please?
Yeah, so we conducted a beta trial, a small beta trial, and what we learned from that is that 88% of the women got clinically significant results on at least 3 of the 7 pain symptoms that we are tracking. So it's pain, it's function, there are mood symptoms, sleep, fatigue, things like this. That was really very validating. We then found that in 90% of the cases, people said, you have improved our daily function. And we've also found that after a 4-month trial, people have stayed with us for another 1.5 years. We've taken that platform down because it was designed for a 4-month experience, and we're now raising money to upgrade that platform based on what we've learned, build in AI and so forth. But that was really very, very gratifying. So we are going to be developing more AI. We have multiple revenue streams. We know that the data that is generated is very valuable. So one of those revenue streams is licensing that to pharmaceutical companies, medical device companies on a fully anonymized, fully responsible basis. And we know that it's valuable because we were able to get a European pharma to raise their hand and say, yeah, we'll take data on 50 women because that's really going to help us figure out what direction to go in on a drug that's entering a phase 3 trial now. So that was really very good. We've actually gotten some subscription income so far, and there are a couple of other revenue streams that we'll be working on that.
Okay, so how have you funded the activities of Pain Tools to date? And if so, do you have plans to raise capital or to promote funds coming in? Do you bill for services? Do you provide an admission charge for these events that you do digitally or in person? What's the funding story here, my friend?
Yeah, really important question. So we have bootstrapped the company. The management team, founder, and team have put in about $500,000. We've gotten some grants, not many, but thankfully some, and a very small loan. And we're out to raise right now a pre-seed round of about $950,000. And that'll be done through a convertible note. We believe that the need is there. It is very timely, and it isn't being filled. And part of what we're going to do as we scale is to build in more personalization. A lot of what we knew going in is if you're able to get people to trust you and set the kind of reciprocity up so that we give something, you share something, we give something more, this is very sticky and very, very helpful. So part of what we're going to do is to take the digital product, which is very, very scalable, and then supplement that with scalable human support. So we will be doing courses and some peer-to-peer interaction. We charge for a course subscription $150 annually. People can pay as well on a quarterly basis. And as I mentioned before, there are some other revenue streams. We would love to explore further opportunities with pharmaceutical companies so that you can partner self-care and medical care, a drug, to actually take a drug and what we do even further. We believe it's possible. We'll need to do some clinical work, to queue up to do that. So that's what we're doing to move this ahead now, Steve.
Terrific. I think that was an excellent summary. Thank you so much. I'd like to turn to our next speaker now, who's going to be Norm Friedland. And as I said, Norm is a household name here. Norm is a co-founder of FullSky Partners, a New York City-based impact advisory firm with global access in healthcare. FullSky advises private foundations, companies, and family offices on strategy and how to take advantage of non-dilutive, what's called mission funding, which is an IRS-approved investment program highly applicable to life science companies. By way of background, Norm is an attorney, a Root Tilden Scholar, a graduate of NYU Law School, a former partner at Cravath, Swaine and Moore, and brings 4 decades of experience in venture capital and technology licensing and tech transfer. So Norm, good to see you again. So the first question is, will you be kind enough to share briefly with our audience precisely what mission funding is and how it works?
Yes, hello, Steve. Marty, thank you for hosting this event. Beautiful venue. It's I have a jacket, but it's miserable in New York, so I left it on the table. But it's great to see everybody here. So what we're looking at is somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 trillion of assets that are in family offices that are dedicated to philanthropic solutions. And the question is how, and this is what we do, is how do we make those philanthropic assets much more impactful in the life science area? Instead of giving a grant to a hospital to build a new wing or to fund a researcher to write some papers, how do we bring together at scale amounts of this type of capital that has a return on mission agenda versus an ROI agenda? And I think what you just heard from Jay is an example of a company that would be a terrific candidate for this, because of the 20 million women who are in need of these services, how do you reach them? How do you educate them? How do you make them feel comfortable? And the answer is ROI Capital is not going to want to support that. But Mission Capital can reach into those communities, can reach into that demographic, and give you the credibility to start to service those types of customers. You heard from Michael about the portfolio of companies that the NIH has, and the question is, they get them to, the edge of the cliff of the valley of death, and without the next level of funding, these companies fall into the valley of death, and all that research, all that knowledge, all those deliverables disappear. And so the point of mission funding is to get these solutions funded, whether it's a diagnostic, a therapeutic, a service, so that they actually reach the patients in ways that are affordable and accessible.
Okay, so you bring me so very, very handily to my next question, because you speak about arriving at the borderline or to the gateway of the valley of death. So it's opportune, because my next question to you is, do you perceive that we're still in what industry refers to as the nuclear winter for VC and IPO financings? Because clearly Mission Capital is an alternative. Clearly Mission Capital may or may not be exactly as valuable, or it could be as a VC or an IPO transaction. But are we still, in your view, in a nuclear winter where capital is scarce and opportunities for money are pursued vigorously? How do you see where we're at vis-a-vis same?
So this is not a new phenomenon. I mean, you can go back about 18 to 24 months, and you start to see the VC money and the private investment money starting to be unavailable, because the IPO market is shutting down. And so you look at statistics, and yes, there are some fundings going on in the life science area. If it has an AI element to it, whether it's a legitimate AI element to it or not, there's a chance that they will get VC or private equity or private investment funding. Otherwise, I think we're in the nuclear winter. There is no light at the end of the tunnel that's even an oncoming train. And so if you look at the statistics, you've got, according to, I think, Ernst & Young, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 life science companies that are going to run out of money in the next 18 months. And what that means is, billions of dollars of R&D is going to be lost. Solutions that are on the horizon for pretty much every type of disease condition you can imagine. And these solutions sounded like science fiction 5 years ago. These solutions are not going to be available. So our focus is on presenting these opportunities to these family offices who all understand that, healthcare doesn't look at your FICO score. And so they've got a commitment to a disease, whether it's because of a family matter, a friend. And the question is, how do they use their philanthropic assets to be leveraged and really impactful? And we have these strategies. It's not rocket surgery, believe me.
Okay, so I get it, Norm, that mission funding is a placebo, a substitute, an opportunity, an alternative for the nuclear status of things. I appreciate that. As we discussed on more than one occasion, as we discussed actually prior to this session, what I read and what I see, I have a bit of a different takeaway. I think the nuclear winter seems to still apply to biotechs trying to do IPOs, but I'm under the general impression just to present the perspective. And by the way, does not mean to say that what I'm about to comment on demonizes in any way the opportunity for private foundations and similar entities to take advantage of commercial opportunities by mission funding. I seem to think that in the fourth quarter and the first quarter of 25, VC transactions and fundings are in an uptick. And I think that the nuclear winter ideology applies more so to biotechs and IPOs, but that's just one person's opinion based upon what one person reads, not necessarily relevant. Tell me this.
So Steve, the other point is that, you know, there's something like 15 to 20,000 diseases that have been identified. Of those 15,000 diseases, there's only somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 therapeutics for those diseases. So you're talking about 95% of the diseases which have no funding from pharma companies, from VCs, from investors. And so here's really the opportunity for these private foundations, either using their philanthropic capital or their, if you're a donor advised fund, to step in and really have tremendous impact. You know, you heard from Michael, he's got a portfolio of these companies. Jay is a perfect example. Sean at Stand Up to Cancer has funded hundreds and hundreds of these developers and researchers. And as I say, the solutions which are incredibly impactful today, you know, we don't have to go invent something that's going to be beneficial 20 years from now. These solutions are here today, and the private foundations, the family offices that have these philanthropic assets can step in at scale and deliver those solutions.
We have about 5 to 10 minutes remaining.
Let me just then make, we have 10 minutes, Marty?
Somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes.
Okay.
we need
Can
to
I
go to
get,
Sean.
can I get a 5-minute extension? Because I don't want to cut Sean short.
We'll always extend Sean as long as he continues to play good pickleball.
Yes, sir. Okay, so Norm, one very quick question and kind of give us a 2-minute answer, and I'd like to move on to Sean to provide adequate communication time. What types of entities are likely users of mission funding? What types of commercial entities would be able to take advantage of mission funding? Is it a length and a breadth of entities? Is there a focal point, or what's the scope?
The key is that the management of these companies that are in the healthcare space has to have an authentic commission, an authentic commitment to patient benefit. If that's the case, then they become, you know, they go to the top of the list. Everything else is commentary after that. It's the authenticity and the commitment of the management to the patient.
Excellent. I'm gonna put a period in it over there because I want to take the time to get over Norm to Sean. Norm, thank you very much. Our next speaker is Sean Coveleski, also well known to our group. Sean joined Stand Up to Cancer in 2022 as a senior vice president. In this role, he leads many of the programs and partnership endeavors that Stand Up to Cancer is engaged with. His previous experiences as a chief development officer and a vice president of the very prestigious Max Planck Florida Institute for Neuroscience, the home base for the Max Planck Institute, of course, is Germany. Sean is an attorney by training and has a degree from Western Michigan University Law School. So, Sean, be kind enough to explain to us what Stand Up to Cancer, a very valuable organization, does. We've already kind of hinted at it a little bit, but if you could kind of give us a nutshell of it in 2 or 3 minutes and cover some other questions and get a chance to give Stand Up to Cancer a full viewing here in today's panel.
Sure. Thank you, Steve. And I just want to thank Marty and a number of other individuals here who've been helping make connections and been very generous with their support. So thank you for the executive committee. That's been invaluable. So a little bit, if we're looking at time, a little bit about Stand Up to Cancer. So we were born out of the entertainment industry with one goal, really to accelerate the pace of team science and research and discovery. So our model was born off of we wanted to bring groups together. So collaboration is a real key cornerstone and through line through our organization. You'll see that with many of our partnerships. You'll see that with many public facing big awareness campaigns. We really see ourselves as an organization that can bring different groups in different industries together, whether that's farm and industry to corporate partnerships, private foundations, family offices. We're across all cancers, so we have no set agendas in the type of cancers, but our real focus is looking at detecting cancer early and treating those, and developing new treatments and therapies for all. So that's our overall portfolio focus. And I know Steve, you have a couple questions, but I'd love
Sure.
to elaborate on norms.
Thank you.
early
I think
process
that's a
development.
very good and concise summary. And it's the focus is early stage, as I know the case to be. So please describe how Stand Up to Cancer operates its research program initiatives, and how do you bring funds in? Give us a perspective on that, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how we bring funds in from a number of sources, as I mentioned, corporate pharma partnerships, family offices, private foundations. Our projects are scalable. So we look at, we fund research grants at, around 100, 250,000 up to projects that we funded in the 20 million range. So these are all normally 5 years or less projects. So the speed of discovery, as I mentioned, is, it was really came out of kind of the entertainment world, movie production, entertainment, fast-paced moving. They wanted to adopt a similar type of approach to research. So adding to the base of knowledge is important, but our organization is really focused on high risk, high reward science.
Okay, you may want to comment on who those founders were from the entertainment industry just briefly before I go to my next question.
Sure. Yep. So Katie Couric was one of our original founders, and Sherry Lansing. So we had a number of entertainment leaders who said, let's come together, let's leverage our networks, let's leverage these large microphones and platforms that we have to really kind of disrupt how research is done. We're just about 16, 17 years old right now. So team science was not widely adopted back then. And we thought, how do we bring the expertise from all of these incredible institutions together and kind of be the honest broker between the strengths of these different incredible research organizations.
Thank you. Now, can you focus us on what your specific research priorities are? What are your areas of focus or concentration, or what constitutes high levels of interest in your world? And you've given us a range of projects, 250 to 20 million. Perhaps you can kind of narrow that band a little bit just to give us a sense, and that would be valuable and productive to hear.
Sure, absolutely. So right now, and I think Michael will kind of agree with some of this, is like, how are we detecting cancers early? We know when you catch it early, you have a much better success rate. So where a lot of traditional funding is going for more late stage, how can we really look at technologies, programs, research that allows us to catch it in stage 1 or 2 versus stage 3 or 4? So that is and that's across all cancers, Steve. So that's a major focus of ours. So key partnerships around that, and then laying on top of that, how are we getting the message out there about early screening recommendations, everything about making sure the public knows what kind of questions they should be talking to their doctor about.
Okay, Marty, I've just got one other question, and we're wrapped up, and I'm finishing
Perfect.
my panel as I wanted to. So, Sean, tell us about how your model positions Stand Up to Cancer to bring together many diverse groups and to make a collective impact. Give us a little color on some of that.
Yeah, no, I think that's I think it's perfect for this conversation today. And what Norm was kind of hinting at is, with this group, family offices are really, truly uniquely positioned, right? There's different sources of capital. A lot of families want to make an impact. How do we break down the silos to say, there's investment impact, there's philanthropic impact, but how can you get a little bit strategic with existing pools of money? So as Norm mentioned about PRI, so program-related investments, recoverable loans from donor-advised funds. I think a real topic that I've heard and had conversations around is with the next generation. So they're doing philanthropy different. They're taking over this wealth through this great transfer of wealth. They're looking at ecosystem changes. They want their investments, their philanthropic investments, to be more of a catalyst versus a traditional grant making, maybe that their parents or grandparents had traditionally exercised that behavior. So I think for this group, encouraging the families to align on, strategic values and how do you accomplish those goals, both with traditional capital and the philanthropic capital.
Excellent. I'd like to say the following few points in wrap up. I wish we had a little more time to have some interactive dialogue. That was my hope in the beginning of the conversation, but it's very clear to me, and I saw this in the inception of our panel, it's very clear to me that there should be future significant discussion between Sean, Michael, and Jay, and I'll come to Norm in a second, because you guys are all converging on early stage conditions, complexities, disease conditions, disease states, afflictions, pain levels that will be valuable, at cross purpose collaboratively. And so there should be some good interactive discussion between you three. And the wrap up to that is that the private foundations should be able to, in my mind, without a great degree of complexity, be able to execute some mission funding related activities, financial capabilities for these kinds of projects that could be worked on collaboratively. So let me thank my panel for an excellent focused and concise and very, very valuable and to the point discussion. And thank you, Marty, once again. We think we're square.
Great job, Steve. Feel better. Thanks.
Thank you.